Let's get to the very sad news that Murray Walker has died at the age of 97. And our Formula One reporter, Craig Slater, joins us now to talk about Murray Walker in this news. Craig, thanks for joining us. Just tell us, just how much did everybody love him in the world of F1?
He was held in the greatest of affection, and I think that's interesting in itself because, as you know yourself from working in sport, there is always that divide between those who compete in the sport and those in the media, if I use the looser term, who cover it. But drivers, even current drivers who were never commented on by Murray Walker, even international drivers for whom English wasn't the first language, looked up to and revered Murray Walker. They recognised that, in a sense, he is one of the key figures for fashioning the sport into the importance it has on the global stage, and in a way, as one of those figures who's helped make it what it is today, along with the likes of Bernie Ecclestone. It's hard to know where Formula One ends and Murray Walker begins, and vice versa. People like Martin Brundle, an enormously accomplished broadcaster who I'm sure we'll be able to speak to over the course of this evening, who want to make his own tribute, spoke about Murray Walker in revered terms, consulted with him with regard to the way he ought to carry out his own broadcast. And I suppose the fact that he'd been involved in the sport for so long as well added to that. He'd been working within motorsport since the late 1940s. And like a lot of commentators in the first era of television, if you like, people like Kenneth Wolstenholme, Peter Allis, there was no finishing school, no journalism courses. In a sense, organically, they made themselves the voices of their particular sport. Murray Walker served in the British Army in World War II. He commanded a tank in a tank battle. And all of that experience, life experience, I think was injected into his commentary over the years. There was that infectious enthusiasm, that unmistakable voice. And if you're of my particular age group as well, you grew up with Murray Walker. He was the conduit by which you enjoyed and understood and learned about Formula One.
He was known for his great knowledge, but that knowledge came from how meticulously his research was as well, and also he's very uncritical of the drivers. I guess that gave him even more love from them and more respect.
Yes, and you can come at commentary in different ways. In a way, he was ahead of his time, Walker, in the way that he worked with his co-commentator. And there was that incredible relationship he had with James Hunt, which stretched into the 1990s. The two of them sharing a microphone in those days. They didn't get individual mics. They had to pass it between themselves. But you're right, Murray Walker would tell it as he saw it. He explained the goings-on track, gave the statistics, but he was uncritical of drivers. He left it to the likes of Hunt and later Jonathan Palmer and Martin Brundle to do that kind of analysis. But he would stand his ground. There was no question who was leading the broadcast. There was one occasion where Hunt desperately wanted to say something, but Walker was still in the midst of describing the action, refused to hand over the microphone to them. And as Hunt tried to pull it away, legend has it that Murray Walker made the fist and then let it be known in no uncertain terms who was going to carry on speaking for the time being. But a remarkable man, really. And when you think back to the great moments in British motorsport, the highs and lows, Nigel Mansell losing the World Championship in 1986 with that exploding tyre in Adelaide. It was Walker that provided the soundtrack. When Damon Hill so emotionally claimed the World Championship in 1996, a decade later, Walker brilliantly articulating the moment, brilliantly doing it by expressing the fact that he was lost for words. I'm sorry I can't speak. There's a lump in my throat. I think that's what made him unique in a sense. There was... it wasn't just calculating. The enthusiasm he delivered was that of a genuine fan, and yet there always was that element of control there too.
Just finally, Craig, you will speak to other reporters, commentators, journalists in the world of F1 at every race meeting that you go to. Do people still try to emulate him, maybe even try to copy him?
Well, I don't think you would ever attempt to copy Murray Walker. He really was a one-off. That's why just instinctively you relate to that voice, to that enthusiasm. I think what we all did do was try and keep him involved. I mean, this was someone who retired from mainstream commentary in 2001, and yet he was very much in demand for his opinion in terms of who might do well in a season to come. And certainly the breadth and depth of his historical knowledge on F1 was something you always wanted to dip into. We tried to enlist him, of course, to hear his thoughts on Lewis Hamilton claiming a 7th World Championship. It was amazing on Sky F1 last year when we had the 70th anniversary race from Silverstone that we were able to speak to him on the phone. Simon Lazenby had a wonderful conversation with him, and Murray still sounded so well and alert, and he was too. And I'll tell you this about him as well. Even in the last year of his life, he took a very deep interest on those people he knew working within Formula One. One or two media figures who had changed jobs or moved jobs. He was very concerned to know that they were doing so for the right reason, that there was nothing going on amiss in their private lives. So he was still very much in touch with the sport. And yeah, in his latter years, he did fight off ill health. He managed to beat cancer. In the last few years, he's been in a nursing home with his wife, but still always listening to races and still very much entertained by Formula One. But goodness, how that sport owes such a debt to him.
Yeah, absolutely right. Craig, thank you. There's a reaction there from our Formula One reporter, Craig Slater. Well, we've now got former world champion Damon Hill, part of the Sky Sports commentary team, on the phone to speak to us as well. Damon, thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm very sorry about the circumstances. So many people are describing Murray Walker as the voice of Formula One. Is that something you agree with him? Is that how you viewed him?
Yeah, he was not only the voice of Formula One, actually. You know, I mean, I'm still reeling from the news, I have to say. It's come quite quickly, this news, and wasn't expecting it. I mean, we thought Murray would go on forever. But I remember him from my, very early days as a commentator on motocross, which was one of my very first loves of motorsport at all. And, his voice, commentating on the names of the time, and Banks and Vickers and all these people. That was where we first heard him, and then he moved over into Formula One, and of course became the legendary Murray Walker. Globally hugely loved, and also people listen to him in some dismay sometimes because of his. He'd get things slightly wrong, but I'd always suspected he knew exactly what he was doing.
There's a tribute here from your colleague David Croft, actually, Damon. It says, "Rest in peace, Murray Walker, a gentleman and a legend in every sense of the word. It was an honour to know you, a delight to spend time in your company, and inspiring to listen and learn from you. Capitals, the voice of Formula One, and always will be. Thank you." Now that, Damon, is more than just a tribute to a commentator. That's a tribute far more. There's a lot of love in that. Why was he so loved?
Yeah, it's because I think we loved the sport through Murray. All the events that when we were young fans watching, looking at and seeing what was happening when Nigel was conquering the world, and the Nigel, it was very much the sort of Nigel Mansell and Murray Walker show as well. I remember him poking Nigel's head. I could see he banged his head, and he deliberately, he knew what he was doing. He was professional, and also he played a little bit of a bumbling reporter at times, but he certainly wasn't that. He knew exactly. And I think David Croft recognises and sees and can see in Murray the professional who was behind it all as well. And the legendary stories about him and James, and how James was a difficult man to work with, and I think Murray wasn't afraid to say that he had his difficulties with him. But he knew what communication was about. He knew what the fans wanted, and he somehow, through not putting himself above anybody, he made it accessible for everybody. We all could sit there and go, Murray, come on, you know, we can see that.
I got one more question for you, Damon. When you became world champion, Craig Slater was just telling us the famous story about how Murray Walker needed a bit of a break because he had a lump in his throat because he was so proud that you had become world champion. What did that mean to you?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it is. He summed it up. This is the brilliance of the guy. He summed up somehow my career achievement, and also what it meant to him, and also what it meant to other people, and what it meant to me, in just a simple act of I believe, complete, sincere emotion, but it was drama as well. So he was brilliant at it. You know, he knew how to communicate.
Damon, it's a sad day, but so many happy memories. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, very sad, really.